All right. In this lesson, we're going to attempt to basically teach simply how to write an SAQ, especially for those of you that haven't been able to be in class. So, in writing an SAQ, I've taken a question that we've already done in class, at least when I'm making this video. This year we've already done in class, and you guys have done one. So I'm hoping to do something where you've had something in your mind, you've approached it a bit, you've tried to answer it, and now I'm going to go through it a little bit with you, just say, hey, now you can look at what you did and how you can make it better. So also I hope that what I'm about to show you right now will help you with all your other writing stuff. Meaning like, just the SAQs that we're going to go through in class, SAQs on the AP test in general, just to make it feel more simple, straightforward, and to the point. We're like, all right, I can do this. So here we go. How to write an SAQ with Mr. Harrison. First off, I'd like to go over the A strategy. Again, we've gone over this in class, but it bears repeating at this point. So when writing an SAQ, you want to keep three things in mind. ACE, and the three things are based off of ACE, which is an acronym. So the first thing, A, stands for clearly answer the question. What is the question at hand? What are you answering? Sorry, just one second. I'm going to switch this out here. Hopefully that looks a little bit bigger for you. So again, clearly answer the question. So, which means you have to look at all parts of the question. So we'll do that when we look at the sample in just a second. Whoops. Okay. Next one, C, represents cite, as in cite specific pieces. It says piece of evidence, but usually you want to have more pieces of evidence to support your answer. The more specific, the better. Okay. And last up, E stands for expand. Expand your answer, providing further analysis or historical context. Okay, just to put that in more simple terms, expand your answer by showing what you know. Just spew on the page, you could say. You don't want to do tons and tons, but man, anything you know in reference to the question at hand, put it down, throw it in there somehow. Flow is not the biggest deal. Again, for those of you that understand that English term, the idea of making it sound good and flowing well in your sentences isn't the biggest deal. It helps, yes, but it isn't the biggest deal. Man, just throw it in there, you could say. And in my example, I'll show you, I personally don't feel like I write exceptionally well. So the example I'm going to give you will seem a little bit like I've spewed on the page when I get there. So, but again, one more. Clearly answer the question, meaning all parts of the question. Cite at least one, but usually various specific pieces of evidence like, oh, this question's asking me this. I know this about it. I know this specific name about it. I learned that vocab word in class. I read it out of the textbook. And then expand. Oh, as I read about that, and I remember the story I heard in class, or I just remember watching a documentary at home, or I remember my dad talking about this at some point, I'm going to add in that little extra information that I know. So that's the idea of expand. So now with the sample question. Here you go. Identify two examples of how the great societies of America were irreversibly changed due to contact with the old world. First off, if this was a real AP question, this is telling you right off the bat it's worth 2 out of the 3 points that would be in this SAQ. By the way, there would usually be one more part of this question to say identify one other example, because SAQs are usually 3 points total. We'll just pretend that this SAQ is just 2 points total. So we have to do 2 examples of how the great societies of America were irreversibly changed due to contact with the old world. So, what are the big parts of this question? I'm going to get my highlighter out here. Hopefully I got good. Whoops. Okay. So first off, of course, one of the big ones is 2. Identify 2 examples. All right, I got to think of 2 things. Okay, what else do I need to be doing? Okay, the great societies of America. Do I know any of those great societies? Who are they? How they were irreversibly changed. Okay, I have to answer this in a way where I can prove that the great societies of America were irreversibly changed due to contact with the old world. Okay, that means some people came from the old world, met the people of the Americas, and something happened where life was irreversibly changed. Like it could never go back. It is impossible to go back to the way life was. or at least inconceivable. So, I imagine you could think of something. But anyways, that's what we have to do, and we have to come up with 2 examples. So, the easy part, sorry, where are we? Whoops. I got to turn off the highlighter so I'm not messing things up. So, the first part is the easiest part. Directly address the question. I'm hoping as you're reading this, you know a bit about, say, the age of exploration, the Spanish and Portuguese of the Old World, Europeans of the Old World coming over and meeting peoples of the New World, or the Great Societies of America, like the Aztecs and Incas. So I was like, hey, man, I know 2 things definitely that happened there. So all I got to write down is disease and diet. Yeah, this is kind of like a standard high school way of answering a question like this. You just answer it in the most simple way possible. And there you go. Disease and diet. Well, just putting down disease and diet, and yes, the Great Societies were irreversibly changed due to disease and their diets were irreversibly changed as well. Would that count for, a point? No. You will get no points for just saying disease and diet. That is more of like, okay, those are the things I need to talk about and prove why they're irreversibly changed. So now I got to think, all right, what evidences can I bring up? I already know that I'm going to try to prove that disease changed their lives forever. I'm going to try to prove that their diets were changed forever, having to do with food. So now I just think in my head, what are all the things I could talk about? In the examples I give you, I'm not going to talk about all those things. But I'm just kind of spewing on the page. Sorry about the reference, I apologize, but just all my thoughts going on the page of what could be talked about. What do I know about this time period? What time period is this? I mean, it doesn't even give you the time period there. It's like, all right, I know that the Europeans came over in the late 1400s, major contact of the 15 and 1600s. I probably should have put that down there and cite specific evidences, because that's evidence, knowing the time period. Peoples that we can talk about, specific great societies would be the Aztecs and Incas, as well as others. I could bring up the Tainos and other groups that we've read about. Specific people I know about, like Montezuma I know was the leader of the Aztecs. You had the Spanish come over, and you had conquistadors like Hernan Cortez and Francisco Pizarro conquering the empires of the Aztecs and the Incas. And with them, they didn't realize it, but they brought over diseases, specific names of diseases like smallpox and measles. They could have brought over bubonic plague. I don't remember reading about that, but hey, killed a lot of Europeans. Probably would have killed a lot of Native Americans too. That sucks. But they also brought over things like sugar. The Native Americans never had cane sugar before, and then heck, they had the cacao bean, and then they put sugar with the cacao bean. They made chocolate. That made life pretty irreversibly awesome. Until your waistline gets too big. And then you have new social classes like Europeans, basically having kids with Native Americans. That's something that has never changed, and that's pretty much irreversible. I mean, I guess you could try to change that, but that's in the DNA now. It's like, all right, I got a lot of things I could talk about. I don't need to talk about all of it. I'll talk about a little bit of it. So now I've done 2 things of the ACE strategy. My direct answer, meaning like, okay, what I'm going to answer this on, I'm going to talk about disease and diet. Those are the 2 things I'm going to talk about. The evidences that I'm going to try to just throw in there is just somewhere off of that. And if I can, off of my evidence list there, I'll try to get that on there. We'll go with that. So this next part I'm going to bring up is my example of a good answer to this question, at least to one of the 2 things. This one's going to deal with disease. One way in which the Aztecs and other great societies of the Americas were irreversibly changed is due to the various diseases such as smallpox and measles that were brought over. I just kind of typed this up quick. I'm sorry about typos. But hey, you won't be judged on typos in the AP test either. So, brought over by Old World European explorers and conquistadors starting in the late 1400s. At first, initial contact was just with the Spanish and Portuguese, but by the late 1400s, but by the 1600s, others like the French, English, and Dutch started coming over as well. With so many Europeans coming from the Old World, disease was easily spread among the native populations of North, Central, and South America, and it is believed that approximately 90% of the native population died due to these new diseases. Thus, the lives of Aztecs, Incas, and other great societies of the Americas were irreversibly changed because of the initial death toll and permanent threat that these new diseases brought into their lives. So, let's break this one down a little bit. By the way, that's really long, meaning that I'm using this as an example. You could probably get the point much easier if yours was even like half that size, meaning of just stuff on there. But what I was doing is, like I said earlier, I'm spewing on there. I'm just throwing everything I can at the AP reader and just saying, I know my stuff. You should give me a dang point. So, let's get out the highlighter again. I'll use a different color. Okay. One way in which the Aztecs, like right off the bat, I'm saying, okay, I know that one of the great societies of the Americas is the Aztecs. There's one of the evidences I'm throwing in there. Okay. And then I'm also saying that I know that they were irreversibly changed. You want to throw that in there. You're trying to prove that you know what you're talking about. And then I say it was changed due to various diseases. And then I say what those diseases are. Now, if you don't know, that's all right. Just saying disease in the first place is actually, in a way, good enough. They didn't say disease in the question. You're already showing that you know that disease was a big deal, even if you don't know what those specific diseases are. But if you know those specific diseases, definitely throw it in there. And then I really get explanative here when I say we're brought over by old world European explorers and conquistadors. Again, I'm throwing it in there as I'm saying, I know that Europeans are from the old world. Now, could you just say European and just leave it at that and assume that the AP reader knows what you're talking about? You could, but I would actually suggest doing that. What I've done here, when you say, all right, the old world people, in this case, are the Europeans. That is already showing that I know what I'm talking about when I say European. And then I even get more explanative when I basically bring up old world European explorers and conquistadors. I'm even using that Spanish term for those early Spanish conquerors that came over way before anybody else did. And I'm even showing how I know the approximate time period, man. I know my stuff. I mean, right there, I should be getting that point. Now, if that's all I had down up to that point right there, maybe I'd get the point. But if I'm reading it and I'm a bit of a strict AP reader, I would not give it to you. I would be like, wow, this person knows their stuff. But they just didn't explain well enough. They got the direct answer part, they got the A part, they got the site-specific evidence part. That's pretty good. But they didn't explain how this was irreversibly changed. They just said they're claiming that it's irreversibly changed at this point. But you're not explaining how it's irreversibly changed, so I'm not giving this kid a point. So, anyways, by the way, I would want to give you a point at this point, but anyways. So that's why you get the rest of this. The rest of this is just, again, spewing on the page, everything you know to give context and explaining that you know what's going on, and especially when we get to that last sentence, which we'll get in a second. So, just to point out this next part. At first, initial contact was just with the Spanish and Portuguese. So I'm saying that I know. I said conquistadors before, but I'm saying, yep, I know those first two Europeans came over. I'm smart. But then I even say going into the time period, like by the 1600s, others like the French, English, and Dutch started coming over as well. Okay. And then I give the context. With so many Europeans coming from the Old World, disease was easily spread among the native populations of North, Central, and South America. This is where I could have added in something else, and I didn't just because I felt like I was writing too much. But here's where I could have added something else. I could have added in the whole Jared Diamond theory, which I don't know if we've talked about that in class yet. I think we have, that it is believed now that there were no diseases, like major kind of like pandemic-style diseases in the Americas before the Europeans got there. And that is why the death toll was so dang high. You know, they didn't have any of those built-up immunities. It is believed, at least, they didn't have those built-up immunities. They didn't have built-up immunities against measles and smallpox, that's for sure. You know, I could have added that in. I probably should have, but I just felt like I was writing too much. And I've already done, I felt like, a pretty good job explaining. Although, I will say this right now, if you start thinking that, that's bad. So everything I just explained, you probably want to throw it in there. I should have thrown that in there. Talked about that whole theory of we think there were no diseases in the Americas, so therefore they're more susceptible to those diseases. Probably should have put that in that at this point. But anyways, so, and I say that I know that about approximately 90% of the native population died due to exposure to these diseases. And then I just start naming people out again. I say, thus the lies, like this whole sentence is really where I clinch the point, you could say. Thus the lives of the Aztecs, Incas, and other great societies of the Americas were irreversibly changed because of the initial death toll and permanent threat that these new diseases brought into their lives. That's my end game. That's what I wanted to say in the very first place. Everything I have written before that is to give context, to show that I know what I'm talking about, and to clearly answer this as best as possible. If all I put down is just saying, the great societies of the Americas were irreversibly changed because of the initial death toll and permanent threat that new diseases brought into their lives, the AP reader would just be like, they know what they're talking about, but they just explain nothing. They didn't explain any real evidence or anything like that. You wouldn't get that. So that's the most important part. That last sentence where I essentially prove that I know how they're irreversibly changed, and I say how they're irreversibly changed right there, but I needed all the other stuff ahead of that, giving context, explaining up to that point. So there is basically, like everything I just went through with you is just for 1 point out of 2 points that we're going for on this SAQ question. So now I have to go to the next slide because I didn't want to throw too much up on this slide for the next answer. So we're going to go to the next one here. Let's see here. All right, now here's the other one. Getting more on the positive side, I guess you could say, of irreversible changes instead of 90% of people dying. But here we go with the next answer, talking about change in diets, basically. Another way in which the great societies of the Americas, like the Iroquois, Tainos, Aztecs, and Incas, were irreversibly changed was with the expanded amount of foods available to them due to Europeans bringing over new and unknown foods and animals from the Old World. Well, yeah, that needs to be freshened up a little bit there. I apologize. Again, I would just type that up quickly this morning. Things like sugar, native to the Old World, combined with the cacao bean, native to the Americas, created chocolate, a new food source. Also, animals such as cows, pigs, and chickens were brought over from the Old World that added new sources of meat to the diets of native peoples of the Americas, irreversibly changing how they ate and what they craved. So, I'm going to start backwards on this one, unlike the last one. Basically, this part right here. Irreversibly changing how they ate and what they craved. That's my end goal. That's what I'm building up to. That's how I'm saying I know that their diets changed because of all this stuff. Everything above that is giving all the context. Again, and I am dropping vocab and just knowledge as much as I possibly can, but at the same time, I don't want to spend too much time writing this answer out because I need to get to other there's 3 SAQs I got to get to. So, but, in the previous one, we did talk about the Incas and Aztecs already, but now I've dropped names like Tainos and Iroquois. I could throw more in there, just tons of different names, but hey, 4 is good enough. Heck, just saying Aztecs or Incas would be fine. Just Incas would be fine. But I explained that they was, again, I say irreversibly changed here, due to the Europeans bringing over new and unknown foods. Now, could I have said Spanish and Portuguese and English and French and things like that? Yes, but since I did that already in the first one, I'm feeling okay about not using them here and just using the word Europeans. Now, bringing over new and unknown foods. I'm not going to highlight this, but this is where you might fall into a trap. It's like they brought over new and unknown foods. Like what? If you don't answer what, then you're not citing specific evidence, really. So that's why we put in things like they bring in sugar. They combine it together with a cacao bean to create chocolate. And animals such as cows and pigs and chickens that are brought over the Old World to add new sources of meat to the diets of the natives. And there I basically put in all the things I needed to earn the point on this question. I've directly answered it. I've cited specific pieces of evidence, and I have proved, especially with that last part, that it irreversibly changed how they ate, and then I add in what they craved. A little extra added there. They don't have to put what they craved, by the way. That's just fun to put in, I guess you say. It helps a little bit with the answer. So anyways, I will leave it at this point. I hope this is helpful to you as you basically write your SAQs. Please reference back to this lesson as much as you would need to or would like to, and we'll go with that.